But, every time you turn on the news, they're just talking about how America is starting to look like 1930s Germany. And to be fair, that's a fascinating time in history, because it just makes me think, if I was alive back then, would I be smart enough to see what's coming down the line? Like, I couldn't even tell that Kanye was a Nazi. He's got an album called Black Skinhead. Like, it's pretty on the nose. But, I'm not smart enough. Einstein, though. Einstein was a smart guy. He was in Germany in the 1930s. He ended up fleeing. And then there was Werner Heisenberg. He stayed behind. He had to end up working on Germany's atomic bomb program. But then there was Schrödinger. So Schrödinger fled Nazi Germany, went to Switzerland. But while he was there, he was still writing pro-Nazi papers. So the royals that put him up, they're like, Schrödinger, what's this? You fled Nazi Germany, but you're still writing pro-Nazi papers? Like, which is it? Schrödinger goes, so there's this cat in the books. And as long as you do not open the books, the cat is not a Nazi. God damn it, Schrödinger, not everything is about cats, man. You get one for particle physics. So apparently it's autistic to have a favorite physicist. That's what I'm finding out. But they're gonna load my train, or load me up on the first train to, Alligator Auschwitz, and I'm just gonna be like, finally, some good rail infrastructure, It's really the most efficient way to load resources. I love learning about scientists. That's it. You guys can call it what you want. Another one I love learning about is the late, great Jane Goodall. She's like an Einstein level of famous. And she's so famous because of her monumental discovery of finding tool use in chimpanzees. Because you see, before Goodall, man was the only tool-using animal. And through the use of tools, it was our God-given right to rule over the earth and its inhabitants. She came along and she just shattered that. One woman's observation made the entire globe change their relationship with animals. It was a big deal. In this woman's observations, these chimps weren't using monkey wrenches or anything. It was just sticks. But that's enough. That's all it took. I wish Jane was still alive to this day, because I always wanted to ask her, like, Jane, have you ever seen a bird's nest before? Birds have been using sticks this whole time. How come they don't get any credit? I think we're just racist to birds, honestly. Think about it. Even to this day, birds have to get water from a different fountain. It's not right. No, I think we've done a disservice to birds on this. And speaking of being racist to birds, there's been no bird that's faced more discrimination than the duck. Just think, what do we know about ducks? We know that they're rapists. And they got corkscrew penises. Like, who's running PR for ducks? I've never heard a peep about a chicken penis. Not a gobble about turkey rape. I find it just a little bit odd that out of the billions of chickens we farm, or the poster child of Thanksgiving dinner, they have all their acts of sexual deviancy just swept away under the rug. I smell a conspiracy here. And there was one brave duck. He tried to illuminate us on this issue. Tried to speak truth to power. That's none other than Mr. Donald Duck himself. Not many people know this, but before he was under the oppressive thumb of Walt Disney, Donald Duck was in a band called Quack Against the Machine. Now, unfortunately, all their music's been scrubbed off the internet, but, I like to think this is what it would have sounded like. So here's Donald Duck and Quack Against the Machine. It's so annoying. And I asked my parents, said, I got, have you guys seen those Tony's Chocolonely chocolate bars popping up everywhere now? Yeah, they just say Tony in big letters on it. I love them. My name's Tony, their name's Tony. It's perfect. And the other cool thing about them is they say they're made without the use of slave labor. Which I think slavery is bad, so that's cool to me, but, I just realized I bought a lot of chocolate in my life, and none of it's ever said it's been made without the use of slaves before. But it's just got me curious, well, which brands do use slavery? It turns out almost all of them. The one that surprised me was Hershey's. I was like, no way, Hershey's uses slaves. They're so woke, they put their pronouns right in the name. Perfect, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much.